Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Kielseth, and to be more specific, that is filmmaker Alex Cox and myself, film curator Pablo Kielseth. Alex will join us by phone from his home in Oregon, while I sneak away from my office to call him from one of the projection booths used by the International Film Series, which has been screening foreign and independent movies at CU Boulder since 1941. We will keep our chats to about 20 minutes as we discuss whatever movie-related topics grab our fancy. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, action.
All right. Well, this is Thursday, April 16th. And first up, I'd like to thank one of our podcast listeners, Omar Pineda from Chicago, for calling to my attention that our last couple of sessions were abruptly cut short. They should now be fixed, but of course, those of you out there listening, please do continue to let us know of any problems and or suggestions you might have while listening to this podcast. I should mention quickly that right now I have with me not Alex, who I am hoping will regain cell connection soon, but we have our special guest, Michael Casey, who is a film critic as well as a writer, and he also covers the beer scene in Boulder. And I was going to put him on as a special guest at the tail end of a conversation with Alex. But since Alex is missing in action at the moment, I thought I'd put him in at the beginning, and hopefully Alex will jump in. Michael, it's very nice of you to make some time to be with me at the moment by phone. How are you doing?
Good. It's snowing like crap outside, so I'm not thrilled about that. But got a nice cold beer here, and it's the end of the day. It's time for movies and all that good stuff. How are you?
I'm all right. I should mention, so you are in Denver and I'm in Boulder, and I think that I'm looking out at the window and I see, looks like a 1.5 inches, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's been snowing a lot. It's wet snow. It's pretty heavy, so it's hard to shovel off. But what kind of beer are you having?
I'm imbibing Sierra Nevada's Hop Bullet. It's their double IPA. It's really quite spectacular. Magnum hops, I believe, and lupulin powder. That's pretty much it. And it's got a punch. That's for damn sure. Nice.
I'm having a trusty Zonker Stout from Snake River Brewing.
A classic.
One of my favorites. So real quickly, so as to tie into movies, I'd like to remind folks that since the International Film Series here in Boulder had to close its doors, as have all other movie venues out there, we've partnered up with various independent distributors like Kino Lorber, Magnolia, Music Box, and many more to provide what we are referring to as virtual screening rooms. If you go to the IFS website, links to different films will pay for titles there, and the distributor will split the proceeds with us. So it's a win-win. The usual price for these virtual screening rooms is $12, which is a bit more than the IFS usually charges. But of course, if you have more than one person in your household, that certainly brings the cost down. I will mention that one of the movies that's available right now is one that we were hoping to screen yesterday. And that is a film that I didn't see because I was waiting to see it at the IFS. And now I'll be clicking the links. But it's the latest film by Ken Loach, Sorry We Missed You. And Michael Casey is in the unique position of having seen the film.
Yes, having seen it and having loved it. I saw this movie pre-pandemic. And for those of you out there who have not seen the movie yet or read the synopsis, it is about the gig economy. The movie revolves around a family. The father is a driver for an Amazon-like delivery service. It is not Amazon in the movie. It's in England. But he drives the Sprinter van around. He's got the little handheld computer that tracks where he is and where the packages should be dropped and how fast he gets them there. And he lives and dies by this device. It is everything. It's his gateway to the future, but it's really just kind of the shackle. Meanwhile, his wife is a in-home caregiver who has to travel across town, really, to take care of some invalided patients. And their two kids And the older son is having some problems at school. He's having some problems with his friends. He's getting a little bit of a trouble, and it's all very chaotic. It's the home life is in disarray because nobody has enough time for each other. Nobody has enough energy for each other. Everyone's yelling over each other. There's emotions are very high. It's a very good movie. This is a movie that hits right to the gut. In a pre-pandemic world, it seemed really poignant, and it had a message that was loud and clear. In a pandemic world, the message is bleak. It is very, very, very bleak. I love this movie. I really do. I don't want to mince words about that, but I will say that if anyone is not in a good mental place to sit and watch this movie, this is not the one that's going to pull you out of that downward spiral. It's just going to make it worse. There is another aspect of this movie that makes it hit even harder now, is that the people who are working now, these frontline individuals, are bringing us food. They're bringing us things in our home. They're bringing entertainment, and they are not being treated well. And it is hard. And my heart goes out to them. But this movie is, yes, Ken Loach he is on his A game with this one.
Well, it's actually thanks to you that it was on the IFS schedule at the very front of the queue, because you, having seen it, you gave me a big shout out. You got to show this movie. You got to show this movie. So I did go out of my way to shake the tree and even harangued the distributor a little bit to say, I just please let me have it, even though, of course, because I have to schedule out 4 or 5 months in advance sometimes, and they didn't want to quite commit, but I did convince them to. And ironically, we are not able to show it, but not able to show it at the venue. We are, however, able to bring it to you through our links that you can get to at internationalfilmseries.com. Scroll down, you'll see Sorry We Missed You there, available for you to watch. It'll feed the soul, even if it might not put a skip in your step, right? I guess that's
I recommend watching it while the sun is still up. That you want to be able to open the blinds at the end. But you've got quite a few pretty good stuff up on your through IFS. I was impressed. How did you had to scramble to quite a few of these too? Yeah,
we scrambled, but they're up there, and I want to thank Jason Phelps, of course, for helping. He's the link who's doing the online positioning. And you actually were kind enough to review 2 of the titles that we have available right now. Alex and I on the last podcast talked about Bakurai, which you've also written about. And then what we didn't talk about, which you've covered, is the
Once We're Brothers.
Once We're Brothers. Yes, thanks.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's another one I want to talk about that you've got up, which is Corpus Christi. This is the Polish film that was up for the best foreign language film. I love that movie. I mean, it was a shame that whatever it was up, like everything was up against Parasite, and Parasite was going to win. But Corpus Christi is a really good movie, and it just kind of grabs me in a way that I did not see coming. It is like a sidekick to the head sort of thing. So I definitely think people should check that out. But like Once We're Brothers, this is the exact opposite of Sorry We Missed You. This is the play this movie loud. If you can't crank it up, just put on the headphones. It's a rock doc. I mean, it's sure. a crowd pleaser.
Now, but I'm going to walk you back to Corpus Christi. What is it about? What's the elevator pitch for that one?
Elevator pitch is that in a remote town, there is a youth detention center. And in the youth detention center is a gentleman who has found the way through Jesus. And he wants to become a priest, but they won't let him because he has a torrid past. He is then sent to another small town, and through a series of miscommunications, they assume that he's actually the visiting priest, because the parson they have is an alcoholic who needs to go into rehab. So he says yes, and he steps into the role. And this town is divided. There's a terrible tragedy that this movie kind of hinges around. And the town is dealing with very unresolved, really kind of dyed-in-the-wool kind of resentment for one another and for a neighboring town, and some of the actions that may have happened. And this kid, he's early 20s, so I guess he's not so much of a kid. He has a troubled past with him, and he taps into that in these sermons that really brings the town out, and they really kind of find some sort of apotheosis and like they heal.
Yeah.
And of course, the movie revolves around this. When's the shoe going to drop? When are they going to find out that he's really not the priest? It's good. It is. And it is solid filmmaking too. It is anamorphic widescreen, the framing, the composition, the editing is great. The performances are good. This is just top to bottom a really good movie. Definitely want to check this one out.
I will put it in the queue. Obviously got a little bit more time than now that we're snowed, not only locked in by the pandemic, but snowed in as well.
Now you have to like bundle to go even for a walk around the neighborhood.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about what's happened to you? We were just talking about in the Sorry We Missed You and the people relying on the gig economy. You are a film critic, but you were writing for the Boulder Weekly. I think you're furloughed at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, the paper has downsized considerably because the majority of advertising, and our paper especially, is through bars and restaurants, and they're closed. Ergo, the money there's a whole ecosystem there at work. So
of course, yeah. So that's kind of on hold. And the beer scene, what's going on with the beer scene?
So the beer scene is it's there's a spike in every type of pandemic or downturn where people turn to beverages or food of comfort sort of thing. So, immediately following the stay-at-home orders, beer sales went way through the roof because people were stocking up. A lot of it had to come out of, I think a lot of it actually came out of grocery stores because they were already buying food for the fridge and for the pantry. And now because of the bill that passed, last year, you can now buy full strength beer in grocery stores in Colorado. 2 years ago, you couldn't. Now you can.
Wow.
So a lot of that, I think, was driven by a lot of those sales. A lot of those numbers that you see of the big spike was driven by grocery sales. There are a lot of breweries, not all of them, but a lot of them have pivoted to the to-go model. So you can either go and pick up your beer, or some of them even will deliver to you. Yeah. But they're in the same case that Boulder Weekly is, where they've had to furlough a lot of their employees as well. And if there's less employees, there's less people to make the beer. There's a question of when can we open and at what level will we be able to open? Obviously, it's not like a switch is going to be flipped and we just all go back to the bar. So what do you do? Do you brew to capacity and then hope that you can just sell it in package? Do you brew to capacity and hope that they magically discover the cure for this virus in the next 2 weeks? What do you do? So it's beginning to slope down, and they recently ran, and by they I mean the Boulder-based Brewers Association, which represents the 8,000 small and independent breweries across the country. They recently ran a survey over how are you doing, how much capital do you have on hand, how much cash can you access, and what is your projection? And unfortunately, it does not look good if they have to stay closed for 3 months, and we could very well lose a couple of thousand breweries due to this pandemic. Some of them were going to close just because they'd run their longevity, or they had bad business practices, or were planning to in the beginning. 5-year leases are up, and rent is really tough in all kinds of places. But this is going to hit the brewing sector pretty hard. It's going to hit a lot of things pretty hard because
obviously,
because not only, like, let's say you own a brewery, a tap house model, or a tap room model. A tap room model means that you brew, let's say, 300 barrels of beer a year. You sell 90% over the counter. People coming in, drinking beer, staying there, playing trivia, whatever. No food, just beer. That is a system that seemed like the best possible way to establish a brewery about 3 months ago. It doesn't seem that way anymore. If people don't come in droves, you got a lot of excess beer. If bars start closing, you have less people to sell to. If restaurants start closing, you have less people to sell to. You can go to the supermarket route. You can go to the local liquor store route, but that requires distribution and packaging and labels through the TTB. And then you have to compete. I mean, if you're a small brewery and you have to compete against Sierra Nevada, or Fat Tire or New Belgium, that's tough. That's real tough. Especially then you got the big, the 800-pound gorilla, Anheuser-Busch hanging out there. So it does not look good.
Now you're writing a book right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm writing a book about the history of brewing in Boulder County. So I am at the perfect time to have a good epilogue.
Jesus, yeah.
Unfortunately. Yes, the book starts in 1979 with the establishment of Boulder Brewing which is the first startup craft, or not the first startup craft brewery. New Albion was in Sonoma, but the first craft brewery in Colorado that isn't officially closed. They're still distributing through a Denver company named Sleeping Giant, but as of January of this year, the Boulder Beer Company has shuttered their brew pub, their production facility. The beer's still out there, but it's not quite the same. It's not the same situation.
Oh, and as an aside, just because I'm remembering it right now while you're talking, I did hear from my friend Tim Rohr. You'll maybe remember he's the one I told you got me hooked into home brewing back in the college days. And he was suggesting having a Zoom happy hour on Wednesday, the 22nd. Is that something that you'd be interested in joining us for?
That sounds like a fine idea.
All right. And for those who are listening, the reason why this is of interest is this friend of mine, Tim's got all kinds of stories about the Colonel, who's a man who supplied homebrewers such as myself with all our supplies back in the day. And he was a very eccentric character. So maybe that'll even be worthy of bringing back for these talks. But yeah, I'll put you down on the calendar. And Mr. Casey, I do want to thank you for joining us. And as a film critic and as a beer reviewer, as a writer, are there any parting words that might give us a little something to look forward to, maybe?
Well, let's see. These post on Friday. So if you are not doing anything today and Saturday and Sunday, then I encourage you to flip on TCM. Normally, this would be the weekend of the Turner Classic Movies Classic Film Festival in Los
Oh, that's right. You were supposed to be there. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of my favorite weekends of the year, and it has been canceled.
And you like to escape the cold of Colorado to go to the warmth of LA, and here we are, end of April, and not only is it cold, it is
it's a very bitter pill to swallow.
You must be an L.
TCM has pivoted. They have created a at-home film festival for the channel all weekend long. So for Friday and Saturday, it will be kind of a, they play the hits. They'll have Network and Casablanca and Magnificent Andersons. Along with like things like Safety Last and even some weird ones like Double Harness, which is a little movie.
Wait, what's Double Harness?
Double Harness is kind of a pre-code rom-com. It's not like a Redheaded Woman or like Night Nurse, where it's really risque, but it's the reason I bring this up is because this movie played in the 2016 TCM Film Festival, and it stars John Cromwell in it. And so James Cromwell, who, if the name isn't familiar, he is the farmer from Babe, was presented the movie, and they played it played on 35 millimeter, and they only have so many theaters that play 35 millimeter. And so it played a very small theater. And not only did it fill up immediately, but they had to turn away people in droves, including myself. So they reprogrammed it on the TVA slot on a Sunday, and the same thing happened. It filled up immediately, and they had to turn away like 300-400 people in droves, myself included. So it was this like, what is this movie? Why can we not see this movie? Why so many people want to see this movie? And this is one of those movies, or TCM's one of those festivals where you don't just have movie lovers, you have like the who's who. So you've got like you got the guys that run the Criterion Collection in Janus Films. You got Leonard Maltin over there. You got Serge Bromberg from France over there. You got the guys from that run the MoMA archive, the UCLA archive. They're all standing in line to see this movie. They're getting turned away to see this movie. You're like, I have to see this movie. Well, they played it on the channel a couple of weeks after the festival because they figured everyone wanted to see it. It's not that great. They all went probably to see James Cromwell.
Oh, classic. Well,
so
and
if you want to see it, it is playing. Let's see here. Let me look it up. It is playing Saturday morning, 9:15 Eastern time. What the hell? It's it's not even an hour and a half. So there you go. You can figure out what everyone who got into this movie thought they were probably getting into something a lot better than they did.
Maybe it was a nitrate print. Some of us cinephiles will just go for the celluloid fix.
It was not a nitrate print because they can only do those in the Egyptian. I think the reason why everyone wanted to see it is because it was on 35 millimeter. James Cromwell was there, but I don't think there was a whole lot of writing on it. So it was the idea of like, maybe we're going to see some like undiscovered gem. And sometimes the undiscovered ones are undiscovered for a reason.
And if you don't want to take chances, don't forget that internationalfilmseries.com, you can go check out Sorry We Missed You, along with quite a few other titles like Once Were Brothers, etc. Michael, I want to say thank you for joining me.
Cheers.
All right, ciao.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
Thanks again for joining Alex Cox and myself today. I'd like to thank Jason Phelps for handling the audio and Ted Thacker for letting us use the intro to his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna, for the musical cues that bookend these conversations.